Hey, I'm Brutania, and this video is a guide on how to PvP with an Unholy Death Knight in Wrath of the Lich King. Being the first hero class in WoW, Death Knights are one of the strongest classes in the game. In return for your loyal service, the Lich King has granted you unholy powers, such as an unsurpassed sustained DPS, heavy cleave damage, a powerful burst when needed, multiple defensive cooldowns, lots of crowd control abilities, and the right tools to crush every caster who stands in your way. Let's begin with the talents. The build you see right now is the most commonly used PvP build for Unholy Death Knights. It offers strong damage output while cleaving, along with good survivability and crowd control. But of course there are many other viable talent builds, and I encourage you to experiment and find the one that suits your playstyle the most. The best major glyphs for Unholy PvP are Glyph of Dark Death, which buffs your death coil, Glyph of Icy Touch, which increases the damage of your Frost Fever disease, Glyph of the Ghoul, which makes your Ghoul retain 40% of your strength and stamina, and Glyph of Disease, which causes Pestilence to refresh the diseases on your current target, allowing you to fit an extra Scourge or Death Strike into your rotation. For minor glyphs, you should use Death's Embrace, Pestilence, and Horn of Winter. And now to the enchants. On your head slot, use 50 attack power plus 20 resilience, on the shoulders 40 attack power plus 15 resilience, on your cloak use 23 haste or 35 spell penetration if you're not spell pen capped. On your chest use 10 to all stats or 20 resilience if you're wearing too many PvE pieces. On the bracers 50 attack power, on the gloves 44 attack power, add an additional gem socket to your belt, on your legs put 75 attack power and 22 critical rating, on the boots 32 attack power, and for your weapon use the rune of the Fallen Crusader. When it comes to stat priority, your first concern is to get 5% hit and 135 spell penetration. To reach the spell penetration cap, you should use 4 blue gems for 25 spell penetration each, and the cloak enchant, which gives an additional 35. Once you are capped, your best attribute is strength. If you've got the Wandering Plague talent, then after strength in the priority list comes critical rating, but if you haven't picked up that talent, then haste is better than crit. Resilience is also important, you should aim for 1200 resilience rating. The stats you shouldn't pursue are expertise and armor penetration, because a big portion of your DPS is spell damage and is not affected by them. Use the meta gem that gives 21 critical rating and 3% increased critical damage, and in the remaining sockets put strength gems. Let's go over the best items per slot for Unholy PvP. You should wear all 5 pieces of the Raffle Gladiator set. For your next slot, use the Anka Harlonic Guard Heroic version, which drops on the second boss in ICC on 25 man mode, but if you can't get it, then use the Raffle PvP amulet. For your back, use Variance Führer Heroic or the Raffle Cloak. Equip the Raffle PvP bracers, boots and belt so that your resilience doesn't drop too low. The best rings are the Ashen Verdict Strength Ring and Skeleton Lord Circle, which drops from the gunship in ICC, but if you can't get that one, a good substitute is the Ring of Rotting Sinew, which drops from the trash in ICC, or the Raffle PvP ring, which you can buy with honor points. The best trinkets are Death's Choice or Death's Verdict, which can be equipped twice, both the heroic and normal version. Another good trinket is the Whispering Fanged Skull, but if your race isn't human, then you should use the PvP medallion, which means you can have only one DPS trinket. The best sigil is the Sigil of the Vengeful Heart, which increases the damage of your death coil, and the second best one is the Sigil of Virulence. You can buy both sigils from the emblem vendors in Dalaran. The best in slot weapon is of course Shadowmourne, the second best is the heroic version of Glorenzelk, and the third best is the tier 2 version of the Raffle PvP weapon, but the normal version, which requires 1800 rating, is also decent. Now let's move on to the gameplay. Death Knights have their own unique research system different from that of any other class. You have 6 runes at your disposal in total, 2 Blood, 2 Frost and 2 Unholy. Each rune becomes active again 10 seconds after being used. Your second resource is runic power. You generate runic power by using abilities that require runes. There's a maximum capacity of 100 runic power, but the runic power mastery talent in the Frost tree increases the cap to 130. Unholy Death Knights focus on stronger diseases and more powerful minions. Your DPS priority is the following. Your first concern is constantly keeping your diseases on the target, which means you should always start with Chains of Ice and Plague Strike. If your diseases are already applied, then use Scourge Strike for maximum damage or Death Strike if you're getting low on health. If there are other enemies near you or if you got the glyph disease, then use Pestilence next. With the remaining blood runes, use Blood Strike. Once all of your runes are on cooldown, it's time to use up your runic power, which you can do by spamming Death Coil. If you are using the glyph of disease, then the diseases on your current target will be refreshed every time you cast Pestilence, which lets you add an extra Scourge or Death Strike to your rotation. When playing 2v2 arenas with a healer and your opponents have a healer as well, use Blood Presence. Against double DPS teams, use Frost Presence for better survivability, or if you are in a double DPS team yourself, then you may use Unholy Presence for a stronger burst. Now let's go over the different abilities you've got at your disposal. One of your strongest cooldowns is the Gargoyle, which attacks your opponents with nature damage. You should keep in mind that her damage depends on the stats you had at the moment you summoned her, so it's best to use her when you've got as many procs and buffs active as possible. Make sure you're using the Bone Shield buff, which decreases damage taken by 20% and decreases damage done by 2%. This ability can also be used as a defensive cooldown to reduce the enemy burst when you know it's coming. Don't forget to refresh your Horn of Winter buff as well, which not only increases your strength and agility by a substantial amount, but also gives some runic power when used, which can be useful in moments when you urgently need more runic power. If your opponents are dispelling your diseases, use Death Coil, which thanks to the Unholy Blight talent will make them undispellable for 10 seconds. In order to slow your opponents and prevent them from getting away, you can use not only Chains of Ice but Scourge Strike and Plague Strike as well, which thanks to the Desecration talent form a circular area on the ground around your character, slowing any opponent who steps in it by 50%. For situations when you are taking large amounts of damage, you've got several defensive cooldowns and abilities which will help you to survive. You may use Icebound Fortitude, which decreases damage taken by 30% and makes you immune to stuns. Anti-Magic Shell, which absorbs incoming spell damage and makes you immune to all harmful spell effects so that no magic debuffs can be applied to you. You've also got the Anti-Magic Zone talent, which forms an area around you, absorbing 75% of incoming spell damage. In dire situations, it's also a good idea to use Death Strike instead of Scourge Strike in order to heal yourself and to switch to Frost Presence. But keep in mind that Death Strike heals you for 5% of your maximum health for every disease on the target, which means that if you haven't applied your diseases first, it won't heal you at all. You can also sacrifice your pet using Death Wish, which will heal you instantly for 40% of your health. If you've picked up the Lichborn talent, then you may also heal yourself with Death Call when you activate it. When you urgently need more runes or runic power, you can use Empower Rune Weapon, which immediately activates all of your runes and gives you 25 runic power. This ability is especially useful when you're bursting your opponent or you need to heal yourself quickly. Another useful but often overlooked ability is Blood Tap, which activates one blood rune and converts it into a death rune that can serve as any of the 3 types of runes. This is very useful when you've got a single Frost or Unholy rune active and you want to use Scourge or Death Strike, or when you need to quickly change your presence. Don't forget that you've got 4 different ways of interrupting your opponent's spellcast. Strangulate costs 1 blood rune and silences the target for 5 seconds. Mind Freeze requires runic power unless you've got the talent which removes the cost, and interrupt the cast, preventing any spell from that school from being cast for 4 seconds. You can also stop their cast by pulling them with dead grip or by stunning them with your pet. If you are planning on playing 2v2 arenas, the recommended partners are a Holy Paladin, a Restoration Druid or a Shadow Priest. And now here are a few macros that you may find useful. This macro activates Lichborn and heals you with Death Coil. This one heals you with Death Pact, but if you've got no active pets, it summons your ghoul first. If you see that your ghoul is dying, then use these two macros to save it. Don't forget to also use focus macros. Here's an example with a macro that dead grips your focus target if you press it while holding down the shield button. An interesting bug in molten-wow is that you can use the Ghoul Frenzy ability on your pet before the arena match starts and it won't disappear when the game begins, despite that its duration is under 30 seconds. Useful addons for Death Knights are Yuri's Rune Display and Engraved, which replace your rune bar with a custom one that can be moved all over the screen, and you can also change the size of individual runes. That's the end of this guide. Now go and use what you've learned to destroy all who dare to oppose the Lich King's will.